The heat hit them the moment they stepped into the cavern. It wasn't just the warmth of the molten rock nearby, it was the intensity that seemed to wrap around them like a living thing, brushing against their skin and igniting a pulse that had little to do with fear. Elena's breath came in short, uneven bursts, half from exertion, half from the anticipation coiling inside her. She glanced at Kieran, who moved with the ease of someone entirely at home in danger or desire. "Are you sure this is safe?" she asked, though her voice had a tremor that betrayed the thrill in her chest. Kieran smirked, his dark eyes glinting with something untouchable in the flickering light of the lava streams. "Safe is boring," he said, his hand brushing hers as they maneuvered along the jagged path. This is alive." She felt it then, the heat from the glowing rock, the warmth of his hand lingering on hers, the electric charge of being this close in the dim, intimate glow of the cavern. Her body reacted before her mind could catch up, a subtle pull toward him that was almost irresistible. The cavern opened wider, revealing a pool of molten lava that hissed and bubbled like a living heartbeat. The light danced across Kieran's face, highlighting the sharp line of his jaw and the curve of his lips as he watched her reaction. Elena's pulse raced, her skin prickling under his gaze. There was something in the way he looked at her, hungry, but restrained, that made her ache with need she hadn't yet allowed herself to name. "You always bring people into situations like this?" she asked, forcing a laugh to mask the flutter of desire creeping through her veins. "Only the ones worth it," he replied, stepping closer. His presence pressed against her side, and she felt the warmth of his body seep through her thin shirt. The heat of the cavern, the scent of sulfur, and Kieran's nearness created a heady cocktail that made her dizzy with longing. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face, his fingers grazing her cheek in a way that set her nerves alight. "You're tense," he murmured, his voice low and rough. "Relax." She wanted to, more than anything, but her body wouldn't obey. Every nerve ending seemed alive, every glance, every breath, every brush of his skin against hers stoking a fire she hadn't felt in years. The lava's glow reflected in her wide eyes, mirroring the heat that simmered between them. "You feel it too, don't you?" he asked softly, leaning closer, his lips dangerously near her ear. "The way this place changes everything." Elena swallowed hard, her fingers tightening around the edge of her pack. The cavern wasn't just a place of molten rock and ancient power, it was a crucible, and somehow, it was melting away the walls she had carefully built around her. She couldn't think, couldn't reason, only feel the pull, the tension, the undeniable magnetism between them. Kieran's hand traced the line of her shoulder, slow, deliberate, teasing. The heat wasn't just from the lava anymore, it radiated from him, from the brush of skin to skin, from the charged air that hummed with promise. She wanted to step back, but her body betrayed her, leaning closer, drawn to him as if gravity had changed in this cavern. "This is going to be dangerous," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "Not the lava, us." He laughed softly, the sound vibrating through the space between them. "That's the point," he said, his lips finally brushing hers in a fleeting, teasing kiss that left her trembling and wanting more. "Danger makes it real. Makes it unforgettable." And in that moment, Elena realized she didn't want safe. She didn't want predictable. She wanted this heat, this tension, this intoxicating seduction in the heart of the lava cavern. The deeper they descended into the cavern, the more oppressive the heat became, but Elena hardly noticed. Her skin tingled from more than the molten rock beneath their feet. Every movement Kieran made was a study in control and temptation, each glance and subtle touch fanning a flame that had nothing to do with the environment. "Stay close," he murmured, his voice low, magnetic, as he led her along a narrow ledge above a river of glowing lava. His hand brushed hers again, not by accident this time but with intent. The simple contact made her chest tighten, her pulse hammering in a rhythm that seemed almost too loud in the cavern's vastness. Elena tried to focus on the path ahead, the jagged stone underfoot, the streams of molten rock snaking through the chasm below, but it was impossible. Kieran was a constant presence at her side, leaning just close enough that she felt the heat of his body seeping into hers. Every time he moved, it was like the lava itself had taken on a new, irresistible allure. She shivered, though the heat should have made shivering impossible. "You're thinking too much," Kieran said softly, his breath brushing against her ear. "Feel it instead." She turned slightly to face him, and their eyes met. In the dim glow of the cavern, the sharp lines of his face seemed sculpted by fire itself. Desire simmered in those dark eyes, unspoken yet impossible to ignore. Elena's lips parted, and for a moment, nothing existed but the tension vibrating between them. He stepped closer, his hand tracing the curve of her arm, deliberate, teasing, sending sparks along her nerves. Her body responded instinctively, leaning toward him, yearning for the warmth of his touch. It wasn't just attraction, it was magnetic, a pull that felt predestined. "I don't usually," she began, but the words died on her lips. Kieran silenced her with a finger pressed lightly against her chin, tilting her face up so their eyes locked again. "Not usually," he prompted, voice low, husky. "Then what do you usually do?" Elena swallowed hard, the heat of the cavern mingling with the heat rising in her chest. She realized she didn't know what she usually did when someone like Kieran appeared, someone so dangerously magnetic, someone who made the air around them crackle. Kieran leaned closer, his lips brushing against her temple, a whisper of warmth that made her shiver violently despite the stifling heat. "You can let go," he murmured. "Here, now, there's no one to judge. No one to hold you back." Her breath hitched. Let go? Could she let herself give in to the storm of desire swirling around them, to the danger in the cavern and the thrill in Kieran's touch? Every instinct screamed caution, yet every cell in her body screamed yes. The ledge narrowed suddenly, forcing them to walk almost shoulder to shoulder. Elena felt the press of his body, the warmth of his chest grazing her arm. Her skin tingled, her mind foggy with the electricity of proximity. The molten glow reflected in their eyes, highlighting the unspoken craving that had taken root between them. Then, without warning, a small tremor shook the cavern. Rocks fell from the ceiling, and the lava hissed in response. Elena stumbled, and Kieran's hands were on her instantly, steadying her, holding her close. The sudden danger only heightened the charged atmosphere. Her heart raced not from fear alone, but from the undeniable closeness, the thrill of having his strong hands on her. "You okay?" he asked, voice low, intimate, brushing against her ear. Elena nodded, though her body betrayed her with every shiver and flush. I think so." Kieran's eyes darkened, a predatory gleam that made her stomach clench with both anticipation and surrender. "Good," he murmured, and then, impossibly close, he pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was slow at first, exploratory, testing the waters, before it deepened, a searing contact that matched the molten world around them. Every nerve in Elena's body ignited. The cavern's heat was nothing compared to the fire Kieran stirred within her. She melted into him instinctively, her hands finding their way to his chest, feeling the taut strength beneath his shirt. It wasn't just lust, it was an intoxicating mix of danger, desire, and the thrill of the unknown. For a long, suspended moment, the world shrank to the heat of the cavern, the glow of the lava, and the press of their bodies against one another. And somewhere deep down, Elena realized she didn't want the moment to end. Not the heat, not the danger, not Kieran. The cavern, alive and throbbing around them, became more than a place of molten rock. It was a crucible of temptation, shaping them, drawing them closer, making every glance, every brush of skin, every shared breath a promise of what was to come. The cavern seemed to pulse with them, alive with heat, shadows, and molten orange light. Every step Elena took felt like walking a fine line between danger and desire, her body attuned to Kieran in ways she had never anticipated. His presence was intoxicating, a magnetic force she couldn't resist, even as every rational thought whispered caution. Kieran led her to a wider chamber, where the lava flowed in slow, mesmerizing rivers that reflected the golden glow onto the jagged walls. Steam rose in thick, curling waves, carrying the scent of sulfur and the tang of raw energy. The heat was stifling, but Elena barely noticed. Her focus was entirely on him, the way his dark hair clung to his forehead in damp tendrils, the taut muscles beneath his shirt, and the intensity in his eyes that seemed to see right through her defenses. "You feel it, don't you?" he murmured, stepping closer, so close that she could feel the heat radiating off his body. "This place, it's more than just lava. It amplifies everything. Every fear, every desire." Elena nodded, unable to speak, her throat tight with anticipation. She could feel her heart hammering in her chest, a frantic rhythm that matched the undulating glow around them. And then his hand brushed hers again, not lightly this time, but with deliberate intent. A shiver raced through her at the contact, and she knew she wanted more. Kieran's lips hovered near her ear, his breath warm and intoxicating. "You're trembling," he said softly. "Is it fear, or something else?" Her lips parted, unable to form words. It was both, she realized, fear of the cavern's danger, of the molten rivers below, but also the dizzying desire curling through her body like molten fire. She could feel it, raw and unrelenting, growing stronger with every second. He leaned closer, his lips brushing her cheek, down her jawline, and she inhaled sharply, her knees threatening to buckle. "You don't have to resist," he whispered, his voice rough with restrained hunger. "Not here. Not with me." Elena's fingers trembled as they slid up his chest, tracing the lines of his muscles, memorizing the strength in each movement. Every nerve ending in her body screamed, urging her forward, toward the dangerous, irresistible pull of Kieran. And when his hand cupped the back of her neck, guiding her closer, she surrendered. Their kiss ignited like a spark hitting kindling. It was slow at first, exploratory, each motion teasing, testing boundaries, before it deepened, fierce and unrelenting. The heat of the cavern mirrored the heat between them, each press of lips and brush of skin fanning the flames. Elena felt her body responding instinctively, arching toward him, melting into his touch. Kieran's hands roamed with deliberate intent, tracing the curve of her waist, sliding along her sides, pulling her closer with each movement. Elena's breath hitched, the cavern echoing with the soft sounds of their desire. For a moment, the molten rivers, the jagged walls, the distant rumble of the earth beneath them, all of it faded. There was only heat, tension, and the magnetic pull between them. A tremor shook the cavern, startling them both, and Elena's body pressed tighter against Kieran's. The sudden danger only heightened the sensation, the thrill of teetering on the edge of risk, of letting desire lead where reason could not. Kieran's lips found hers again, this time slower, deeper, teasing her with a patience that made her ache for more. "You're beautiful," he murmured against her mouth, his hands firm yet gentle on her body. "And you're not afraid? That's what makes this irresistible." Elena shivered, her hands tangling in his hair, pulling him closer, feeling the raw power in his body, the warmth, the tension, the promise. Every inch of her ached to surrender, to give in to the magnetic, dangerous energy that bound them together in the molten glow of the cavern. They moved together through the chamber, drawn to the edge of a deeper pool of lava. The light flickered across their bodies, highlighting every curve, every line of tension and desire. Elena's mind spun, a mixture of exhilaration and longing, of fear and surrender, as she realized she had never felt such a potent, consuming attraction. Kieran's hands lingered, teasing, drawing fire from her every nerve. His lips brushed hers again, a tantalizing whisper, before he pulled back slightly, his dark gaze locking with hers. "We're just getting started," he said, voice husky. "The cavern, it's not the only thing that's going to burn tonight." Elena's pulse raced, her body on fire, her mind dizzy with anticipation. She had no idea what would come next, but one thing was certain, there was no turning back. The molten heart of the cavern mirrored the molten desire inside her, and Kieran was the spark that had ignited it. The cavern's heat pressed against Elena's skin like a living thing, yet it was nothing compared to the fire Kieran had ignited inside her. Every glance, every touch, every whispered word wrapped around her, pulling her further into a world where desire and danger coexisted, where the molten rivers beneath them seemed to echo the pounding of her heart. Kieran led her along a narrow ledge that overlooked a larger pool of lava, its surface glowing with a fierce, molten light. Shadows danced across the cavern walls, reflecting the flickering, intimate glow over their bodies. Elena's pulse raced as she felt his presence behind her, warm and electric, his breath brushing the nape of her neck. "You feel it, don't you?" he murmured, his lips grazing her ear. "The way the heat amplifies everything. Every touch, every glance, it's like the world is burning just for us." Elena shivered, though it wasn't entirely from the cavern's oppressive warmth. Her body responded instinctively to his nearness, to the deliberate, teasing brush of his fingers against hers. The air around them seemed to hum with tension, thick with unspoken promises and the dangerous allure of surrender. He stepped closer, pressing his chest against her back, and Elena felt the pull of his body as if gravity had shifted. The contact was electric, sending waves of heat through her every nerve. She leaned back, almost instinctively, and he captured her lips in a slow, consuming kiss, deep and demanding. Every motion was deliberate, every touch designed to tease and ignite. Elena's hands roamed over his shoulders, down his back, feeling the taut muscles beneath his skin. The heat between them was no longer just metaphorical, the cavern seemed to pulse in time with their desire. Every glance, every brush of skin, was an invitation, a temptation she could not resist. A sudden rumble shook the cavern floor, and the lava below hissed as if in warning. Elena gasped, pressing herself against Kieran instinctively. But rather than fear, the tremor seemed to heighten the intensity, the thrill of danger only making the attraction between them more potent. Kieran's hands moved to her waist, lifting her slightly as he whispered against her lips, "You're irresistible. And right here, right now. I'm not letting you go." Her breath hitched, body trembling with need. She wanted to resist, to hold back, but the molten heat of the cavern and the undeniable pull of Kieran's touch made resistance impossible. She surrendered, giving in to the surge of desire that coursed through her veins like liquid fire. Their kiss deepened, more urgent now, as they moved closer to the edge of the lava pool. Elena felt the warmth of the molten rock beneath them, the cavern walls pressing in with an almost sentient intimacy. Every brush of Kieran's lips, every deliberate touch, sent tremors of longing through her body. She clung to him, letting the cavern, the heat, and the danger dissolve all hesitation. "You're trembling," Kieran murmured, his lips tracing the line of her jaw. "Is it the heat, or me?" Elena swallowed hard, unable to answer. It was both. She realized the raw, unrelenting heat of the cavern, and the consuming desire he stirred within her. Her hands tangled in his hair, pulling him closer, pressing herself against him, and the world outside the molten glow disappeared. Kieran's fingers traced the curve of her hips, drawing soft, shivering breaths from her. "Every inch of you," he whispered, voice low, rough with need, "is made to burn." Elena's knees threatened to buckle, but he held her, guiding her movements with deliberate care. The lava's glow reflected in their eyes, capturing the dangerous, intoxicating pull between them. The cavern was alive with heat and shadow, a crucible for their passion, every moment charged with tension, every motion a promise of more to come. For a long moment, they simply held each other, bodies pressed together, breathing mingling, hearts racing in perfect sync with the molten world around them. And then, with a slow, deliberate motion, Kieran tilted her chin upward, capturing her lips again, igniting a fire that neither the cavern's heat nor the molten rock could contain. "Stay with me," he whispered, voice husky, "and feel everything this place has to offer. The danger, the heat, the desire." Elena nodded, giving herself over completely, letting the fire between them consume her. The lava pool below roared like a living thing, shadows danced across their skin, and in that intimate, dangerous space, nothing existed but the flames, the heat, and the undeniable seduction of Kieran's touch. The cavern seemed to pulse with life, a living, breathing organism of molten rock, shadows, and heat. Every flicker of light reflected on Kieran's sharp features, making him look both dangerous and irresistible. Elena felt her body tense, then melt, under his gaze, as if the lava itself had infused him with a magnetism she could neither resist nor comprehend. Kieran's hands roamed along her body, tracing every curve, lingering over sensitive spots, teasing, testing, stoking the fire that burned in her veins. Elena's breath came in quick, shivering bursts, her heart pounding in rhythm with the molten currents below. She leaned into him instinctively, the cavern's heat and his nearness blurring all thought, leaving only sensation. "You're beautiful," he whispered against her lips, his voice rough and low, vibrating through her chest. "Every part of you belongs to this moment, to the fire, to me." Elena's fingers tangled in his hair, tugging gently, eliciting a low, intoxicating groan from him. Their lips met again, this time with a fierce urgency that made the cavern feel impossibly small, every shadow and flicker of light bearing witness to the heat between them. She pressed against him, feeling the taut strength of his chest beneath her hands, the subtle tremor in his arms as desire flared between them. A sudden tremor shook the cavern, and rocks tumbled from above. The molten rivers hissed in response, sending waves of heat up through the stone beneath their feet. Elena gasped, gripping Kieran instinctively. But instead of fear, the danger heightened the tension, making every touch, every brush of skin, even more electric. "Careful," he murmured, holding her steady with a firm, possessive grip. "We're close to the edge, but I won't let anything hurt you." His words, his touch, his nearness, it was intoxicating. Elena's body responded before her mind could process, melting into him, craving the warmth and the thrill, the electric charge that ran through every nerve ending. The heat of the cavern, the danger of the lava, the intensity of Kieran's desire, it all coalesced into a heady, irresistible storm. Kieran's lips trailed down her neck, brushing against the hollow of her collarbone, teasing, drawing soft, shivering gasps from her. Elena tilted her head, surrendering to the sensation, to the pull of the man who had drawn her into this molten, shadowed world. Her fingers pressed against his chest, feeling the taut muscles flex beneath her touch, craving more, wanting to lose herself entirely. "You're trembling," he whispered against her skin, his hand tracing the curve of her hip. "Is it the heat, or me?" Elena's breath hitched, her body betraying her with every tremor. It was both the suffocating heat of the cavern, the raw, unrelenting desire he stirred within her, and the thrill of teetering on the edge of danger together. She could feel herself melting into him, and she didn't want to stop, didn't want to resist. Kieran pulled her close, their bodies pressed together in the flickering orange glow. Every brush of skin, every touch, every shared breath stoked the fire between them. Elena's hands roamed freely, memorizing the strength in his body, feeling the subtle shifts of tension and release, losing herself in the heat, the desire, the moment. Then he stepped back slightly, his dark eyes locking with hers, filled with something primal and unrelenting. "Do you trust me?" he asked, voice low, husky. Elena nodded, her lips parting, her body trembling. "Yes," she whispered, though it was more a surrender than a word, a promise to let the heat and the desire guide her. Kieran's smile was slow, deliberate, predatory. "Good," he murmured. And then, without warning, he leaned in, capturing her lips again, his hands sliding along her back, down her sides, pressing her body closer to his. The kiss was deep, urgent, consuming, and Elena's senses erupted. Every nerve ending sang with heat and desire, every inch of her responding to him, to the cavern, to the danger and thrill that surrounded them. The molten rivers below reflected the fiery dance of their bodies, the shadows twisting and flickering across their skin. Elena felt herself lose all sense of time, of reason, of anything but the fire that coursed through her veins, ignited by Kieran's touch and the primal intensity of the cavern itself. And as they clung together, pressed to the edge of danger, Elena realized that she had never known desire like this before, wild, consuming, and utterly irresistible. The lava may have burned beneath their feet, but the fire between them burned hotter, more potent, and infinitely more dangerous. The cavern's heat wrapped around them like a living thing, suffocating yet intoxicating. Every inch of Elena's skin was alive with sensation, every nerve ending screaming at her with the raw, unrelenting pull of Kieran's touch. The molten rivers below hissed and shimmered, echoing the fire that had ignited between them. Kieran pressed her against the jagged cavern wall, his body taut, controlled, but undeniably driven by the same burning desire. Elena's breath came in short, shivering gasps, her hands tracing the lines of his chest, feeling the firm muscles flex beneath her touch. The heat wasn't just from the lava now, it radiated from him, from their closeness, from the intensity that surrounded them like a living, molten storm. "You feel it too, don't you?" he whispered, his lips grazing the curve of her neck, sending shivers down her spine. "The heat, the danger, the desire. It's all intertwined, and it's consuming us." Elena's body responded instinctively, leaning into him, pressing herself closer, craving every inch of his warmth, every brush of his lips. Her fingers tangled in his hair, pulling him toward her, needing to feel him, to lose herself entirely in the blaze of sensation that engulfed them both. Kieran's hands roamed over her back, down to her hips, steadying her on the narrow ledge while simultaneously igniting a fire she could not control. The cavern itself seemed to respond, the molten glow reflecting off the walls like flames dancing to their rhythm. Every movement was deliberate, every touch a spark, and Elena was utterly consumed. "You're trembling," he murmured, brushing his lips against hers briefly before trailing down to her jaw. "And I'm not stopping. Not until you're as consumed as I am." Elena gasped, her body quivering under the heat of his words, under the deliberate, relentless pressure of his hands and lips. The lava beneath them hissed and shimmered, a dangerous, mesmerizing reflection of the heat that radiated between them. She felt alive in a way that was almost frightening. Each breath, each shiver, each gasp was a surrender to the undeniable force pulling them together. He pressed her closer, their bodies molding together, each movement electric. Elena's head fell back against the cavern wall, her hair brushing his chest, and she closed her eyes, letting herself be consumed by the sensation. The world outside, the air, the stone, even fear faded until there was nothing but the fire between them, molten and irresistible. "Every inch of you," Kieran murmured, voice low and rough with desire, "is on fire. And I want to feel every part of it." Elena's hands roamed over his shoulders, down his arms, memorizing the tension and strength in every line of his body. Her breath came faster, shuddering, and every nerve ending screamed for more. She had never felt such intensity, such an all-consuming force of need and heat. And she didn't want it to end. A tremor shook the cavern, stronger this time, sending small rocks skittering across the ledge. Elena clutched Kieran instinctively, her body pressed against his, her heart racing. The danger only heightened the fire inside her, the thrill of standing on the edge of destruction, of giving in completely, of letting desire dictate every movement. Kieran's lips captured hers again, deep and demanding, his hands tracing the curve of her back, her waist, pulling her impossibly closer. Every kiss, every press of skin, every shiver of breath between them was amplified by the cavern, by the lava, by the danger that hummed around them. Elena moaned softly, surrendering fully to the pull, to the fire, to the man who had become her irresistible, molten obsession. The heat, the thrill, the danger, they were all fused into a single, overwhelming force, consuming every part of her. She had never felt anything like it, and she knew she never would again. Kieran's hands lingered, teasing, claiming, as he whispered against her lips, "We're burning together, and there's no turning back." Elena's response was instinctive, urgent, and everything she felt, desire, surrender, longing, flowed into that single, searing moment. They were molten, alive, consumed by the heat, by the fire, by the cavern itself. And in that dangerous, intoxicating glow, neither of them wanted to stop. The cavern seemed alive, trembling with their desire as much as with the molten rivers below. Heat radiated from every surface, the jagged walls, the glowing lava, and most of all from Kieran and Elena, bodies pressed together in a rhythm as ancient and primal as the fire itself. Every nerve ending screamed, every heartbeat raced, and yet it was impossible to discern where the cavern ended and they began. Kieran's hands traced the curve of her waist, sliding up to cradle her back, holding her close, his touch a constant, molten pressure that left her trembling. Elena leaned into him, surrendering fully, her breath hitching, every movement a mirror of the fire coursing between them. The molten light reflected in their eyes, igniting a fire that needed no flame to burn brighter. "You feel it, don't you?" Kieran murmured, lips brushing her ear. "This heat, this danger, it's ours. Every pulse, every shiver, it's alive with us." Elena shivered violently, pressing herself closer, letting herself melt into the intensity of the moment. Her hands roamed over him with abandon, memorizing the taut strength beneath her touch. Every brush of his lips against her skin, every teasing, lingering caress, sent shocks of heat through her body, making her ache with desire she could no longer deny. The cavern trembled again, larger this time, and a hiss of molten rock echoed around them. Elena gasped, gripping Kieran, but the danger only sharpened the intensity between them. Fear and desire intertwined in a heady, intoxicating swirl, each amplifying the other. The fire of the lava mirrored the fire in their veins, and surrendering to it felt inevitable. Kieran's lips found hers again, deep and demanding, pulling her into a rhythm that matched the molten currents below. Every motion, every shiver, every sigh was a declaration of surrender, of passion, of trust, of the dangerous magnetism that had drawn them together from the moment they entered the cavern. "You're consuming me," he murmured, voice low and husky, teeth brushing against her lower lip in a teasing, sensual move that made her gasp. "And I don't want it to stop." Elena arched into him instinctively, shivering under the intensity of his touch. Every inch of her body was alive with sensation, every nerve ending alight with molten electricity. She had never known desire this potent, this consuming, this utterly irresistible. The cavern, the lava, the shadows, they were all part of the crucible that had forged them into this perfect, dangerous, irresistible union. Kieran pressed her against the wall once more, steadying her as the tremors shook the cavern. Yet in the midst of danger, the fire between them only intensified. His lips traced her jaw, down her neck, every touch deliberate, teasing, igniting a blaze she could no longer resist. Her hands tangled in his hair, pulling him closer, pressing her body fully into his, losing herself in the sensation, in the heat, in him. "You belong here," he whispered against her lips, voice rough with desire. "Right here, in the fire, with me." Elena moaned softly, surrendering completely. The lava's glow reflected in their eyes, shadows dancing across their bodies, emphasizing the raw, consuming heat between them. Every kiss, every brush of skin, every press of body against body sent sparks that felt like flames licking through their veins. Time and space disappeared. The cavern, the molten rock, the distant echoes of tremors, they all faded, leaving only the undeniable, all-consuming connection that had built between them. Elena's body arched into Kieran's, her breath mingling with his, every gasp, every shiver, every moan a testament to the molten fire that bound them. Finally, in a shared, heated climax of sensation and surrender, they pressed together fully, letting the passion consume them completely. The cavern seemed to tremble in response, the lava glowing brighter as if celebrating their union, their surrender to the fire that had enveloped them. When they finally parted slightly, breathing heavily, their foreheads resting together, the heat lingered not just from the cavern, but from the molten desire that would not be extinguished. Their eyes met, dark and bright in the flickering light, and a silent promise passed between them: this was only the beginning of the fire they had discovered together. Elena smiled, her body still tingling from the intensity, her heart still racing. "I never imagined," she whispered. Kieran's lips brushed hers in a soft, lingering kiss. "Neither did I," he said, voice low and warm. "But some fires, some desires, are impossible to resist." And in the molten glow of the lava cavern, surrounded by heat, shadows, and danger, they both knew that some fires like theirs would burn forever.